That's right. The stream crashed. And this is part 2. Alright, got the link back out there. Okay. Hello again, Vic. So, I don't know exactly what part I cut off at, but basically I think Weld's suspicions make sense for Weld, but we know that Tattletale is more or less at the same level of, like, a Cauldron asset as Weld is. They are both people who have been heavily influenced by Cauldron in the past, and that it wasn't even known to them who Cauldron was at the time that was happening. Tattletale confirms to Taylor that she figured out what had happened and what was going to happen with Scion just before, like, he actually attacked, and that Cauldron did know, but that it took like the suppression of information from Marquis to keep it secret, etc. So more people also knew. So they were more directly complicit than just lying by omission. They specifically covered it up. And so Weld was saying something that we don't even hear because Taylor's not paying attention, and she just starts yelling, "You knew Scion would do this." Some lines I like to attribute to a real reactionary sounding Southern accent, but yes, Dr. Mother says. Yeah, so Taylor knows that everyone's looking at her, and she's like, I just don't care anymore, she thinks, and she just, is fine with being the center of attention for now. Dr. Mother's saying that because it was inevitable, it's best that it happened now. Taylor keeps bringing it back to the central point that they knew. Otvik says, Taylor has never minded being the center of attention. Yeah. As long as she thinks she's in the right. Yeah, true. The number man starts explaining that, in fact, they think that there was going to be a major decline in the population, which is him backing up Dr. Mother's claim that it would have been worse for it to happen later on the timeline. And they think that enough capes in one place over and over again was just causing these incredibly explosive situations, major problems followed by Endbringer attacks, and has the sort of... Because he does say there were basically implies there were more well-managed clusters and says New York and New Delhi, but, like, New Delhi, there was enough conflict that it led to Behemoth showing up, pretty much. But whatever. And then he says that she herself was part of the chain reaction after the attempted ABB takeover of Brockton Bay. He gives this whole cause and effects trail through that I will actually read out in the Powers Knowledge section. So, explaining that something like that is kind of bound to happen whenever there's too many parahumans in one place. Something's going to bring any given situation to a breaking point. and that there are going to be more and more unfavorable events that turn out worse than the Echidna event, and then he gives examples. Um, the Blasphemies, Sleeper, the Ash Beast, and even the Slaughterhouse 9. And then the Blasphemies don't react to this, so Taylor. I think Taylor is wary of them. She seemingly has no knowledge of the blasphemies aside from the most basic possible information. So, um, boop, boop, boop. So, yes, he's explaining more that they would have even less forces as time goes on. Dinah says that 14 years from now is pretty much the end of the line when Scion would have attacked. And then the doctor says that they weren't accelerationists. They weren't intentionally doing anything to speed this up, but they're fine with how things have turned out. And then Taylor seems to be on the verge of lashing out, like an emotional lash out, and then she says that Contessa tenses before she even starts drawing out silk. So, like, Contessa is pre-acting to cancel out her urge to attack. It's pretty impressive stuff. I mean, we know how Contessa works, so I guess it's not that impressive, but still, seeing it in action can be awesome. Anyway. And then this is just enough time for Chevalier to get mad and strike his fist, which is what shakes Taylor out of her moment. And he's mad at the doctor for saying that they're not upset at what's happened. And then she's like, look, that may have been an irresponsible way to talk about this, but on the other hand, it's good that we have a large number of powerful capes to attempt to fight Scion with. And she believes that they're in, like, the best possible kind of scenario for both evacuation and offensive fighting. Although she will later explain that she still thinks that they're most likely going to lose. She's like, this is as good as it gets. And then Tecton gets a split second to speak up, asking if they're going to evacuate people like they did in New Delhi. And they say that they're going to put people in different Earths. They're not going to like send them to the same place. Although I think that what he means is just portaling out thousands of people at once, which is what they're doing. So I don't know what they're talking about. But they say different Earths closing behind us as we go. And they say that the reason they didn't evacuate people before was because they were worried about setting off Scion early, more or less. And Taylor starts losing it again. She's clenching her fists. She's probably growling through her teeth, though she doesn't say that. And then Cauldron says that everything they've done has been to build towards this. And that's when a silence hangs in the air. She's looking around the room, and then Faultline accuses them of, like, setting this up so that they can step in and like be heroes. And then they say, this is when they say that they not only don't expect to be heroes, but they expect that even with all their stockpiled countermeasures and information and plans, they fully expect to fail. And Fault line rightly brings up. So all of it, all of the things you've done, it's for nothing. And then Dr. Muller's like, yeah, probably. I don't know. It's crazy. You just gotta, you don't think about it too much. That's how we got ourselves to do it. When Well asks her why, she says at the very beginning that they knew that they would rather that they think that they had done all they could. And at every step, they were doing things that they thought would maximize their chances, including keeping it all a secret, etc. Then Taylor, I pulled this out for the character section, but I'm gonna read it now. You made sacrifices. You made sacrifices on behalf of others, and you made the hard calls, but it was all for something greater. I bet you think you won't have any regrets at the end. And then skipping. I know what that's like. I've walked down that road. Maybe not so ugly a road, but I've gone that route. All the way along, I told myself it sucked, but I wouldn't do it differently. I did everything I did for a reason, except now, having reached the point I was working toward, I finally do regret it all. The last 2 years, the way I treated my teammates, leaving the Undersiders, I'd change it all in a heartbeat. And it's like, this sentiment shall be echoed later on. The doctor says in the middle of that it's been a long time since she lost sleep over anything, and then Weld splinters the wood on his railing at his little section. And then Taylor looks around. She specifically looks to Golem several times in this conversation. Dr. Mother says she's gonna risk regretting things. And then then she sort of moves the conversation along to having Tattletale explain about Scion to the group so that they can kind of all get on the same page. And, some of them maybe not trust Tattletale, but that is what it is. Vic says she takes back all of it except for shooting Aster. That part was important. Oh my god. And then I shot Aster. I can't believe I still have this, like, the fact that that's the one spoiler you knew, Vic, is that Taylor shot Aster. The only thing that you knew. Crazy. Oh, the dog needed to escape. Vic says, I just knew she shot a toddler. Yep, sometime. In some context. What if that toddler had powers and was Jack and kept saying tabula rasa instead of goo goo gaga? I don't know. Just saying. So Tattletale explains all she knows, how Scion is basically like a non-human entity that was created to give a body to the alien that is more or less the main host creature of the colonial crystalline space interdimensional jellyfish that is reaching out its tendrils to give each of them powers. Well, it's kind of like it's split from being a colonial jellyfish, and each little formerly colony-based jellyfish is now individually using its tendril to seek out a human and give them powers. But then the Scion one is like the entire rest of the colony. And in Tattletale's, where it's, I think she says, keeping all the... Oh. I don't know why. I thought that she had the line about keeping all the best powers for himself. But that's clearly not how it's worded. Except each of his cells is coated with just a fragment of his brain and a technique he uses to manipulate his environment, protect himself or others. He spread powers around Earth as a part of the way to stress test them. He wants to leverage our brains and imagination to figure out ways to make the most of these abilities and innovate new ones. With me so far. Gully says no, not at all, but we as the audience are usually generally with her because we kind of get it. She does say that. She just must word it differently because I was keyword searching and not finding it. Boop, 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 boop. She goes, okay, well, it gets worse, so follow along. After distributing all the powers he could, he left a chunk of himself still active, still alive, and he kept all the good powers, the abilities he needed to ensure the whole process continues. Yeah, there we go. Except something went wrong, and the process is fucked. How am I doing? And then she gets a roughly on target grade from the doctor, which, I mean, that's great. This is as good as it needs to be. Roughly on target. Tattletail's getting, like, psyched as fuck, because, like, this is, like, the best day of her life. Maybe not the whole day, but this little portion of it is better than any previous day. And then let's see here. So then she says that he had been doing specific good acts because of Kevin telling him to do stuff, and now he's got a new purpose from Jack to start murdering. And then Taylor thinks to herself in italicized text, "Nya there, ing." And then she thinks of her dad, who is, as we know, likely dead, but she couldn't bear to even check. Which a lot of people, I feel like a lot of readers, they're like, oh, Taylor, you're terrible and whatever. But, like, Taylor's got to be locked in. There's a lot at stake right now. Including if Danny is alive, saving Danny. So, either he's dead and there's no Danny to save, or he's alive and she's got to do the damn thing. So, she can't look at it either way. And then the doctor introduces a concept that we got a hint at in the chapter with Scion, but that we get sort of confirmed here, which is that while he could destroy the entire Earth and all the other Earths at the same time, he has actually started doing, like, kind of weirder behaviors. He's doing, like, antonym attacks to saving people with the way, like, he saved people at the beginning when he started Kevin Norton's thing. He has a specific... They show a video. Apparently he's been attacking... he attacked down the coast of Africa and did a thing where he would go to a city and kill all the anyone who had reached puberty and leave alive anyone who hadn't, to sort of, like, instead of save children, to orphan children. Vic says, yeah, I would love to know where this screen is. Because, yeah, the lead-in... Because I actually looked several times, because I was, like, trying to write down where it was. But it says... The third attack was against Mali, followed by Burkina Faso, Ghana, Togo, and all down the coast of Africa. In this attack, he selectively murdered specific individuals. And then it just says, I watched the scene, Scion flying with a speed like an arrow shot from a bow, narrow lasers blasting from each hand. He came to a stop a short distance from the camera, canceling the laser assault. the image panned over the city, the image panned over to look at the city as Scion hovered there in the sky, a major population center. Capes were already taking flight to stop him. No, not capes, people in civilian clothes, with powers, many heavily tattooed. Vic says Imp is holding it in the middle and spinning in a circle to show everyone. Yeah. It's like one of those things that spins super fast so you can project an image on it, only a screen. So yeah, like maybe this attack could have been any of the ones that was down the coast of Africa, I guess. But he does like a super flare. It fires out. The doctor explains how he killed only adults. And then it's like his hyper awareness of the surroundings is what allowed him to do such a targeted attack on such a mass scale. And it's like we've seen, like, he's both fully aware through powers of what's happening on around him, and also has almost an inability to process, like, things that are even slightly outside of his current thought process. Vic says, killing all the adults in, like, one specific country is a hate crime. Scion is over. Hashtag Scion is over party. Yeah. Scion is over. That loser. We don't ride with Scion anymore. And then Taylor finds the changing behavior of Scion like more ominous and spooky than what had come before. Although it is less dangerous. It's he's probably going to up the cruelty factor. He's going into more Jack directions with things, perhaps. But he either way, he's experimenting, as they say. In Russia, he had put out fires that, like, famously when he had first said his name, and they had misheard him. Now he is indeed starting fires and keeping people inside the buildings as they slowly cook. And then also, if any capes, or the Russian equivalent of capes, fly up to fight him, then he does fight and kill them. Yeah, so, you know, Taylor's thinking this through about how he could already destroy them all if he wanted. And then Dr. Mother brings up that they will try and access Lizette if they can, but currently Scion's too close, and they won't open a portal if he's on the same, like, continent as you. So, you know. And then Khalifa de Pero, or the Dog King, is like, look, bro, I just need to know what I need to do to protect my people. And then a lot of people are like, yeah, that's where we at. And it's like the theme I had said of the interpersonal, like, cape dynamics. So this is like they're meeting on common ground in, like, you know, they in many ways all hate each other, but they all have some similar motivations, all the main ones. And then the doctor says that they should run, they should get ready for a fight, and try and think outside the box. And Faultline's like, I've got an idea. Why don't we, like, just re-talk to him? If talking is what made him be a hero, and talking is what caused this apocalypse, we should re-talk to him. And then Tattletale's like, what's your plan? And then Faultline's like, I don't know, maybe we trick him into leaving. And then Tattletale's like, that's not gonna work. And one of the things Faultline had said is maybe we give him what he wants, but Tattletale explains that what he wants is to harness the power from obliterating all Earths to continue his life cycle. So giving him what he wants doesn't assist them in any way. And then Chevalier kind of gets mad at Tattletale and says, like, any idea is a good thing. And then he loops in forcing Cauldron to, well, not forcing them, but sort of saying they need their access to their portal network, and then they explain that this is the moment for Bonesaw. And they are she says sort of I'm gonna just read this statement because I think it's kind of like, I get what she's saying, but it's also like weird. I don't ask you, any of you, for your help. I don't ask for your assistance or cooperation. I only want us to share resources, provide solutions. Share resources, provide solutions. Isn't that for help, for assistance, and for cooperation? I don't know. I might just be being nitpicky here, but then the Doctor sends Contessa. Vic thinks it's funny, but I just think she's being ridiculous. That Doctor. And then she has Contessa start the sort of Bonesaw thing. When Bonesaw talks, Taylor is instantly like, "Oh, you suck." She says how her voice has a childish, what is it? Childish in a way Dinah's wasn't. Vic says, I agree that's asking for help. She got, she got some audacity. Yeah. And then, Defiant says there's no reason for Bonesaw to be there, and then the Doctor says Contessa believes there is, and then sets Tattletale on her. Tattletale's like, I both hate this thing where you're calling me in and like having me explain things for you, and like using me like a dog, but also I get to do my favorite thing ever. So, conundrum. But she is given the goal from the Doctor to get a remote, which she's probably able to infer that this is the control switch. Bonesaw says that she's a good guy now, and then that Tattletale is cheating as a information warfare weapon. She's insisting that she just wants to make it out alive. And then Defiance saying that she could still be a sleeper agent for Jack, and Tattletale's like cutting through it because part of Tattletale's power is, for story purposes, being able to cut through things. Vic says she's so unconvincing. She should have practiced. Yeah, she's like mega unconvincing. But in a way where I don't think that she could practice to be convincing, I guess. Anyway, Tattletale, as a story device, lets us cut through the bullshit and understand that Bonesaw does sincerely want to live and has flipped on Jack. And she starts saying that Bonesaw's still set on doing the art and stuff of her power, all the bad stuff, and she won't care if things come at the cost of others. And Bonesaw complains that she could just do the bad stuff to bad people. She kind of gives a Dexter argument, but for like torture, murder, or even torture enslavement, which is worse. Actually, it's hard. It's hard to know. They're both really bad. I don't know. Anyway, so Chevalier and Defiant both say no. They're like firmly against this, as the heads of the two most heroic organizations present. Not that the Protectorate rules, just most of these people are fairly unheroic, and the Guild is clearly the peak heroes of the bunch. And then, Tattletale's like, look, the only bad person we need you to fight against is Scion, and you can't do anything to him, so don't even, we're not even going down that road. And then Tattletale tells her to drop the act, and then Bonesaw becomes Bonesea, and we see her more genuine self. She's not nearly as childish, not as perky. And then Tattletale tells her she's in the middle of a metamorphosis, and then figures out that she has formed a friendship outside of the Nine. And Bonesaw, confirmed that she has realized that Jack's been using her, but that they were cheating because it was all Contessa's fault. And then, which is why they need to use Tattletale as a, middle ground tool to fulfill the Contessa job. Even though they're still Contessa, it's like if Contessa was a pool cue, then they are, instead of firing the cue ball at Bonesaw, they're firing it at Tattletale, but Tattletale is still on a perfect trajectory to scoot around and hit Bonesaw into the pocket. Vic says, let Bonesaw be camp. They're trying to dim her light. Yeah, I can't believe that they're hampering her style. And then boop 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 boop. Doot. And then Tattletale sort of zings things around and undermines Cauldron, saying that this moment where she's being used against Bonesaw is supposed to build solidarity between the different teams. And then we get a classic somebody quipping in a moment where, everybody else is serious. She goes, whatever, Bonesaw, Boney, Bones. She leaves off an important one, Bonesea. And then we're corrected. Riley. And then Chevalier gets mad that she's joking. And then saying that they've wasted time. Tattletale says basically look, if you've wasted too much time, then leave. But I'm doing my thing. And then Tattletale brings up the art aspect of things. Bonesaw tries to play it off like, I don't even care about it anymore. I don't even care about my power. God. And then Tattletale's like, no, you care. And then Bonesaw's like, I don't care. And then she's like, but you do though. And then she's like, well, whenever I think about doing art now, I think about my friend. And I think about his face on the victim. And I'm like, oh, that'd be bad. And then Tattletale's like, you've got a long way to go from, oh, that'd be bad, to actually, being a sympathetic character. Vic says, honestly, Bonesaw is so relatable in how she flops this interaction. It's so bad. Yeah. Tattletale yells at her. She says that Chevalier was right. We don't have a lot of time. Stop equivocating and listen. You're a monster. Maybe the worst one out there. But when it all comes down to it, you're just like that big golden bastard out there. You're Jack's pawn. Everything you ever made, everything you ever did, the strongest parts of you, the little vulnerabilities, custom tailored by him. No, Bonesaw says. Yes. The friend I made, the new me, it's calculated by Jack. Don't tell me he doesn't plot things for down the road. Hey, Golem, talk to me. And then she gets Golem to explain that Jack had a thinker power and he hurts Taylor's feelings. He says, because he's like Weaver. He also says he reacts like someone that is way too aware of what's going on. And then Taylor's like, acts like me? Oh, man. That Theo's a jerk. I'm gonna beat him up later. She's like, I'd had a similar thought myself, but I wasn't as much of a fucking dick about it. I like this moment. It's a classic Parahumans moment. And then he admits that he sent the Dragon's Tooth Soldier because the only thing they hadn't tried was the competent non-cape. And I do think you basically need a vanguard of like a shitload of capes to fight through his capes before this kind of scenario would even be possible. Because, like, yeah, he couldn't read that this guy was there through his, like, Corona Palencia instincts. But at the same time, if, like, I don't know, the Siberian just was like, oh, and I grab you and you're dead. You know, there's problems. But, yeah, so they tried the competent non-cape. But I think this part is also important. Weaver surrounds her with bugs, or herself with bugs, and Jack surrounds himself with capes. So, you know, you wouldn't use a bug army to fight Taylor unless you were Coil and Chariot. And you wouldn't use a cape army to fight Jack unless you were everybody he ever beat that had a cape army. So they kind of speculate around Jack's power, saying that they think he has a thinker power that lets him manipulate capes. And that's not exactly right, but Tattletale's not always exactly right. And she is right that he is, like, probably unaware that it's even there and constantly using it. So that all tracks. And then, you know, Tattletale brings up that when he gets bored, he sets up these big scenarios. And even when he's mid Brockton Bay scenario, he's already trying to set up the next one with the, like, Golem plan. He's like, look, I need to leave so many breadcrumbs for the future because I'll basically, like, make a 2-year plan and then I'll, like end it day one because I just, like, can't fucking pace myself at all. And then Tattletale's then goes on to sort of explain that she gave Bonesaw, or that Jack gave Bonesaw slack so that she would do art, but she still manipulated it, and it was through like the way that he reacted to the art, the way that the other team members did, etc. And Bonesaw starts getting defensive, being like, I do my own stuff, and, you know, you don't know. And then Taylor notices that Bonesaw is getting completely thrown off and is so off kilter that she forgot the original message, that she didn't care about the art. But Tattletale is just, like, hammering away at her. It was all Jack, and it was all him. So now, even if you use your power, you fucking won't even get the enjoyment out of it because you'll constantly be thinking, was this just Jack? Um, and then she says the thing about putting your buddy's face on possible victims isn't even close to redemption. Which cows Bonesaw. She physically changes her posture, even though she's in like full body restraints. She is further put low. And then it's to such a degree that Taylor's like, oh shit! For a split second, I forgot she was Bonesaw and felt bad for her. Fuck. Then she says, "Be rational. Let's not push the lunatic too far." I thought that's rational. So she is able to rationalize her guilt over emotionally torturing Bonesea. And so that's when Tattletale presents the idea of giving them the remote again. Bonesaw says, "Fuck that! Fuck no!" And then Tattletale says one last thing. "You have to trust us before we'll trust you. Give us the remote." And then there's no more reaction out of Bonesaw, but Contessa tells Dr. Mother that they're good to go. They'll get the remote. Vic says, "I'd like to take this literally. Bonesaw makes all the victims look like her buddy." Oh my god. Changed all their faces out. And then she's like, "Oh, okay, I won't do it anymore." All I'll do is keep changing their face to the same face. That reminds me of like the dumbest gag from Aqua Teen Hunger Force, but one that I dearly love, which they have a machine that can change any song into the ragtime song The Entertainer. And then somebody asks about like a specific song. He goes, "What can it do the world's greatest song? Boston's More Than a Feeling." And then he's like, "I told you, it can turn any song into this song." It's so stupid, but I think of that frequently. And you know, Gru and Parian are both like billowing with powers stuff. The smoke tendrils churning, and Parian's hair and frock stirring as if there was a wind blowing. You know what? Now, since we know that Parian has to do like really light materials, why doesn't she like yank her enemies around by their hair? Like, I don't know. I think it would work. And then if you're like a total body hair guy, then she can Magneto throw you around like you're friggin' Wolverine with his adamantine skeleton. I mean, parahuman's powers are often gross, so why not have Parian be gross? Vic says Parian doesn't care to optimize her fighting. Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's the main reason. She could be pulling everyone's pants down as a first move. Also, needles and eyes. Dude, Parian's power is really good. Maybe she's saving all that. She's like, "Look, I need to make it seem like I only make stuffed animal attacks, and then I just go ballistic in phase 2 of the fight." Because she's a raid boss, and she activates more attacks as the fight goes on. So yeah, she thinks that her teammates had derived satisfaction from seeing Bonesaw get mentally tortured like this, and then she's like, thinking back on her own experience, and she's like, she's not gonna begrudge them taking joy from Bonesaw's torture, but she does feel a measure of sympathy. And then the doctor says that they more or less knew that if they let the birdcage residents here tonight, then they would probably not be able to send them back. So they were considering the birdcage implications before taking any action on that front. Vic says, yeah, I bet people don't understand her power well since she uses it too poorly. Yeah. Woof. Probably true. They're like, your power's like mock show's power, right? Like romp? You bring things to life that are large size? So then Defiant also says that if they release the birdcage prisoners, they lose his cooperation, and assumedly the guild and possibly all the protectorate teams. And then he's talking about how Saint hamstrung them right at a critical juncture, etc. And then Saint's like, I can't believe you'd intentionally obstruct us out of spite. And it's like, Saint, you need a mirror so that you can talk at the mirror right now. And then Defiant, Defiant gets back on his bullshit. He's like, I promised I would kill you. I will. Anyone who allies with themselves with Saint gets the same treatment. Yeah, Defiant rules. He is a badass. Vic says, Saint is so cringe in this convo. He wants teacher so bad. Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. And then Saint quips. You know, they do be quipping. Saint says, I'm terrified, not of you, but your short-sightedness. The end of the world is nigh, and you have a vendetta. It's like every accusation from Saint is a confession. Defiant outright says, I'm inclined toward tunnel vision. It's Defiant is actually great here. Not letting Saint sort of fortify himself in place. Because, I mean, to a certain degree, they can, like, weight of numbers box him out of anything. Because he does have the control of Dragon's tech at the moment. But, like, what if they use Contessa against him or something? Or, like, to make Mags and Dobrynya turn on him or something. Who knows? Who flippin' knows? So the possibilities are in the air. And then boop. They sort of agree around the table that they do want to release people from the birdcage. Then when giving stipulations, Defiant does not list waking up Dragon because he doesn't think that that's possible to convince Saint on. So he wants Saint to hand over Dragon's tech to him to operate so that they can actually use it more properly and to keep Teacher in the birdcage. And then, Saint's like, that's not a fair bargain because that doesn't leave me in charge. And then he's like, look, this is a whole table full of people. Most people don't want you in charge, and they don't like you either. And then he's like, well, we need the teacher for thinkers. And it's like, even if we wanted his dumbass thinkers, we're just assuming that teacher is going to work toward our goals and not some oblique third thing that doesn't even save us from fucking Scion in the first place, you know? And you know what? I feel like the cross on Saint's face is like a good, like the fact that he has a face tattoo of a religious symbol is like, how much more symbolism do we need to be like, this guy is a crazy zealot? Vic says, I don't think anyone here wants Saint in charge, even before the dragon stuff. Yeah, like, I think at best they think that Saint is kind of an unstable element. And the majority of people think he's an asshole. And then, of course, there are several people in the room who have no idea who he is, etc. But, so nobody agrees or disagrees loudly with Saint. And this is when he says that he wants a compromise. And then he says he'll give Dragon's Tech back to Defiant if they let Teacher free. It's his one point that he can't compromise on, even though they're all like, that's clearly the main weak point that you have. And he's like, I just don't see it. I don't know what you guys are talking about. I'm looking around for weak points. Don't see a single one. And where's Teacher again? And he's also like, give me the drugs. I mean, the teacher. And that says, it says, I'll step down if you have someone to replace me. There are options, Defiant said. He looked to the Undersiders. I'm not sure exactly what he meant by, like, there are options. Like, wouldn't the person to replace Saint be Defiant in this case? Or, I guess, Tattletale? I don't know. I would still offload her duties to multiple people. It's like, you know, not that I love Parks and Rec anymore, but that Parks and Rec Leslie Knope episode where she's down for the count or whatever because she's sick, and they need like 6 people to kind of approximate as if she hadn't been sick. Vic says, oh god, Tattletale with Dragon's Tech. Yeah, she's already tapped into all the camera feeds that the Protectorate has going. She's gonna have too much processing power. And then boop 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 boop. Then they Dr. Mother's like, look, everybody break. Just go do your shit. We're gonna give you doorway access. You're just gonna need to call for doorways. And then when she calls, if there's any other business or suggestions, Faultline says they're really going over their head by opening the birdcage. And then Defiant asks about amnesty for past crimes for stuff. And, you know, Chevalier is gonna, like, try and help them do that. And then they're still being ushered away by Dr. Mother, and this is when Contessa starts speaking aloud to be like, Imp, don't follow me. Get out of here, Imp. I know you're there. And then Taylor feels a weird pang of sympathy for Bonesaw when she looks over, and Bonesaw has persisted in not moving since she was cowed earlier. But then she's like, it's not enough to forgive her, but maybe I could forgive someone else. And then there's a page break and a very short one-page little thing. She enters a prison and she's like, it was weird to enter as a visitor. Like, it still had to be searched or whatever, but I'm just free to leave and wear the clothes I showed up in. They sit across each other in the little prisoner talking room. And who is it but none other than Sophia, Shadow Stalker. And, you know, it ends with them, with their opening lines of, "Hi, Shadow Stalker," I told Sophia. "Taylor," she replied. And then it ends. And then it cliffhangers. She may be ready to forgive. To give. Because she's one further down the track. Final chapter thoughts, other than like, this is really good. As good or better than the first Cauldron meeting. It's got so much going on. It's got tons of people. The Birdcage people not being there is good because it unclutters the conversation from them being part of, like, arguing for their own freedom. Which, like, the fact that they can't argue for their own freedom, it's not normally my take as, like, a good thing. But for story reasons, for pacing reasons, it kept the chapter moving. And I said we've long since reached the point in the story where the chapters get really long, but I skimmed ahead on the audiobook table of contents. All of the remaining chapters have at least 40 minutes, and all but 3 of them are longer than 45 minutes. So, pretty crazy. And if Greg were in the chat right now, he would be joking about the addendum chapter. I do not count the addendum chapter when I'm counting remaining short chapters. I like the addendum chapter as a thing, as what it is, but it is not a real chapter. It will not have a separate week. Unless the goal of that week is to take a break or have like a joke stream. But yes, the remaining chapters all quite long. As for arc stuff, again, this is a really great ramp up. It's the second chapter of the start of. I didn't mention this last time, I think, but 27 through 29 is kind of its own. Well, no, 29 through 30, I guess. It's like its own story movement, just in the way that some of the other previous ones have been, where, like, when 26 wraps up, we're really in a new thing. So the fact that last chapter was like a point 1, a arc start, it's also really the start of the overall movement. And then this is like more ramp up. We need to get everybody on board. We need to establish what we're doing, which is, the biggest team up of all team ups, where you get everyone fighting against one guy, and you see if it's enough. And I think that's all for arc stuff, really. Like, it's just we're on stakes building, we're on information gathering, we're on plan making. For characters, I started with Saint, Mags, and Dobrynia. The other 2 are not named in this chapter, but they're physically present and giving Saint morale. And Saint sucks. We all know this. We all agree. Saint is really short-sighted, and he's always telling people that they're the ones being selfish, while currently aiming himself in a selfish direction. So, very hateable, great character, terrible guy. And look, Mags and Dobrynya, slightly better people, real assholes for sticking with Saint all the time. I know what they say, ride or die. Sometimes you should not do that. Maybe it's even a bad plan of action in many cases because of how much Saint sucks, for instance. Defiant, Narwhal, Mazumune, and the DT Soldier. Everyone here from the guild. These are probably the top tier heroes, the most heroic of all the organizations, the guild. It starts off with Defiant detailing how much Saint sucks to the crowd, and then we get another iteration of that later. And he is determined to stop Saint from taking power or releasing Teacher. Obviously, the frustrating thing is they do compromise and release Teacher. If I were Contessa, I would be finding an outcome where we don't release Teacher. Maybe I just snap Saint's little neck. Maybe I just do that. I don't know. And then maybe I just type in a random code that just happens to be the right codes to flip over the controls from Saint to Defiant. Who knows? If I were Contessa, a lot of things would happen that are different than happen in the book. And to anyone who says, like, Contessa's decision points were kind of preset before the story, every time she is near something that gives her a hole in her perception, I think she's basically got to re-up her questions. She's got to reset in a lot of ways. So she is making a decision over and over again to keep down the same path, whether or not they want to acknowledge that. Because that's just how the powers work. I guess I kind of talked about Contessa too early. She's in the later little section. Narwhal, Mazumune, and the DT guy don't end up talking at all. It's all Defiant. He, like many of these spokespeople, he's doing all the talking. But this is a great chapter for Defiant. I think that he is a proper Batman in this chapter. Yes. In the most positive Batman complimentary. That's how we type it. So then we've got Weld, Sveta, Gully, Sanguine, Gentle Giant, and the rest of the unnamed irregulars. Vic says, if I were Defiant, I would have hopped the fence and threw hands. Slice Saint right in half. Yeah. I know he's got tech, but so many people in the room would be on his side. Like, Exalt would probably throw him right into the spear. Who knows? He's like, I know that guy Defiant. I'll help him kill that guy Saint. I do not care about international relations. Weld and Sveta have an interesting relationship at this moment. I guess this is a way for her to be able to be active and out and participate, but it is quite odd for him to wear her as a shirt. It's real. It gives me the vibes of that Doctor Who episode where the actor who played Moaning Myrtle became a pavement stone with a face on it. Vic says, nah, I think it's cute. I will accept thinking it's cute, but it sure does make me think of that one Doctor Who episode. Apparently Gully is standing tall and stuff, so she's got a lot of confidence from being in this group. And then, there's a bunch of unnamed irregulars. There could be any number of irregulars. Weld is speaking for the group and more or less is the only one to talk from their side, but he asserts himself as they arrive, and he doesn't waste any time. So, he seems to be, enough of a voice for his people that none of them need to interject, I guess. We've got, of course, the Protectorate heroes, Chevalier, Revel, Exalt, Tecton, Golem, some crowd of unnamed people. I'm marking them as "and the rest," like it's the original opening to Gilligan's Island, where there were only 2 characters that got rolled up into "and the rest." So, Chevalier is doing his normal main hero thing. He's basically like the avatar of heroism in this story. Well, kind of Dragon is, but then Chevalier is like the avatar of male heroism or something. I don't know. I feel like they're like the two, and Legend though. Those are they're like beacons. And they've all got Chevalier's initial past is perhaps checkered in a certain way, although not very. Dragon has a mega secret, and then Legend has a mega secret, but Chevalier is the most straightforward of them. Aside from almost killing some child kidnapper people, which isn't even that bad, then Chevalier is like the most hands clean type hero guy. And he's mad. He's back and he's mad. He does not like the way that Dr. Mother is so casual about the situation that's ongoing. His subordinates don't talk from the Protectorate, but Tecton speaks up, and then Golem is called upon to speak up a little bit. So they get a little teeny bit of characterization. And then we've got Dr. Mother doing lots of the talking. Contessa takes a few specific actions to guide the conversation. And then the Number Man backing up Dr. Mother's many hyper-utilitarian style arguments with numeric quantities and being like, have you considered that I've pushed my glasses up my nose more times than you have, so I know more about this than you? Push his glasses up nose more. And we've got Fault Line's crew. Well, Fault Line, crew, and Dinah are how I listed this group. None of the rest of them speak. Again, I kind of think this was more for simplicity's sake, but it does have the background effect of being they're confident enough in their leader that aside from Dinah saying one minor thing, they don't need to talk in addition to Fault Line. They feel like she's representing their interests well enough. Fault Line is pretty practical and is a voice for the little guy, even more so than the Undersiders. They are kind of on the ground. They are the most focused on I know they're mercenaries, but they're generally the most focused on helping the marginalized, I guess, in the way that they're grouped up with all these Case 53s and former involuntary Cauldron Capes is how I'll call them, not because Cauldron Cape kind of implies that they took the vial willingly, but I mean Clover, who is not really a Case 53, but also is very against Cauldron. And very much on the victim side of the scale, whereas the majority of Cauldron vial takers are kind of on the opposing side, the oppressive side of the scale, because they're benefiting from the suffering of the Case 53s type of thing. So Faultline is there and is doing her story duty to represent the needs of the people who are not being spoken for in this conversation. Dinah, keeping quiet as ever, trying not to affect things too much because she knows she needs to use Taylor as a guided missile and freaking end this thing. So things need to go just right. And then I wrote down Bonesaw continuing to question the Bonesaw persona. I think it would be quite a stretch to be like, she's Riley now. She's like wants to get away from the negative aspects of being Bonesaw, but she's basically still Bonesaw. And I would say, if anything, rather than like moving away from being Bonesaw, like her journey in continuing like stuff is more about like learning to live with being Bonesaw and also still being able to grow up. So it's more complicated than just like she's shucking off this old persona. There's I think there's a good back and forth because I basically agree with the like, oh no, we're really having to get down in the mud and mentally tear apart this child who was tortured by the same guy we hate. But instead, you know, we also feel the dual feelings of like, yeah, but Bonesaw is like one of the worst people ever, even if she was a child. So it's a little hard to reckon in some ways. And Taylor, in fact, does not reckon. She's like, I will reckon an easier to reckon thing on my own terms. But before we get to that, I wanted to quickly mention all the Undersiders who aren't Lisa or Taylor. We got Brian, Saba, Lily, Rachel, and I put Aisha ? Because clearly she's standing in the middle of the room and spinning around to watch everyone's reactions based on Vic's analysis of the chapter. So, you know, we've got a lot of background unintentional power use as emotional signal type stuff going on, but there's no actual lines coming from any of those characters. I guess Aisha's her own kind of thing because she specifically has the trying to follow after Contessa moment. But you know, aside from that, and I do think it's funny that she walks back with a dejected appearance. She doesn't disappear to hide from everybody else that she was trying to follow Contessa. She's like, oh man. Anyway, final member of the group, Lisa. She is doing the most, and like I said earlier, having the best 5 minutes of her life. She loves this conversation, and she loves being mean to Bonesaw, and she loves talking down to everybody, and she loves explaining things, and she finally gets to unwrap like the biggest mystery. And she even gets to like fuck with Cauldron when she's doing it, because she's like, you want me to do it this way, but I'm gonna do it this other way. It's great. This is a peak Lisa chapter. Like, you don't like need a character like Lisa for the book, but when you have a superpower setting, like, she's so like wonderful as a writing tool. Like, she's a great character, an even greater concept, like the personification of narrative information to the point where we can more or less just believe the things that she's telling us, and it cuts right through character doubt and stuff. Like, it doesn't always fully assuage it. She's not technically always right. Yada, yada, yada. But we see in this chapter how useful she is. And we love her. So here, at the end of the list, we've got Taylor. I also have Sophia here. I put Taylor / Sophia. I didn't want to put Sophia between Taylor and the Undersiders, but I didn't want to talk about her till the end. We barely see her, but it says that her eyes glared at me, cold, not the eyes I'd known. No act, no hiding behind a mask. This was her. So yeah, she sees the cold eyes of a killer. Sophia. Taylor's got the warm, sweet eyes of a killer. So Sophia, yeah, like I guess Sophia in this case doesn't necessarily need me to talk about her so much, but the fact that Taylor has moved on to the point that she's willing to forgive her is a whole thing in itself. And I think it really shows how Taylor's like scope of the world and understanding has changed over the last 2 years. I even feel like she almost was ready to forgive Sophia at the point where she had joined the Chicago Wards team. Like, I think after Arc 24, she would have been able to forgive Sophia, but she's really like so far beyond it at this point that even when Sophia's like, snarling at her next chapter, lashing out, then she's able to maintain frame, as they say. Oh yeah, and I pulled the quote that I had read earlier, but I'm gonna read it again. You made sacrifices. You made sacrifices on behalf of others, and you made the hard calls, but it was all for something greater. I bet you think you won't have any regrets at the end. Yeah, so wonder if we'll hear something similar to that come back. And Taylor is pretty out of sorts this chapter for various reasons. She was sort of just getting back on her game after the whole like I'm gonna fly out over the ocean thing, and then right after that she sees Bonesaw. She has been bone seen, and she's like, oh fuck this, fuck everything. Yeah, she's in quite a tizzy, but understandably. Moving on from the character section, I'm going to go to the powers, knowledge, and world building and talk about all the people who are kind of there, but who are not, like, either fully not characterized or, like, the most minorist. We've got the Tanda. They speak up, like, one time. We've got Ward Nog. No lines, although things are translated for her. Yangban, never speak up once. The Elite, standing there being like snooty dudes and ladies. Snooty ladies, too. They're snooty dudes, snooty ladies. We've got the Annelid and Khalifa de Pero. I'm really going to keep an eye out for Adelaide again. I don't know that we ever see him fight or anything. I don't know. He's just not someone who has a lot of screen time, or if he does fight, is not memorable enough and gets probably insta-gibbed. That happens to a lot of people. They get gibbed. The suits, the British are here. Taylor mentions that 3 of the 8 suits are missing leadership, which implies that the other 5 suits of the 8 have at least one leader left to represent them here. So to me, it's shocking the other way. It's not shocking that they have so many people. It's shocking that so few of them were in the UK when the entire overall island was exploded. Let's see here. We know that they were split up into different like groups based on what their roles in the organization were. So, we're missing hearts, cups, and swords. We got coins, wands. Let's see here. Yeah. Ooh, yeah. Coin, wand, spade, diamond, club are the remaining ones. So, those are pretty good. Wands are cool, probably. Clubs, maybe you could hit Scion with some clubs. Anyway, whole groups are getting wiped out. I guess I should have mentioned them here. The fact that the Kingsmen, or the Kingsmen, however you would pronounce their group, they're straight up gone. So we don't have to think about them anymore. Those monarchists. And then the blasphemies are here. They are weird tinker devices that we will mostly not learn about until like kind of reflecting back on past events and Ward, going like, wonder what was up with that. They mention the Ash Beast, which we kind of know about from way back when. Seemingly an event like Echidna, where a trigger event, unclear if it was a cauldron thing or not. The trigger event went way wrong, or maybe a second trigger did, and it has released a completely uncontrollable power source that, like, even when people try to direct it toward their enemies and stuff, it will often just turn on whoever is trying to control it. And then the Sleeper, who is on a par with these previously mentioned groups and the Slaughterhouse 9. We don't know what the Sleeper does. So, interesting stuff. The non-characters in this section, I put in Scion's changing behavior. It will become a core component of how they relate to fighting Scion, that he is undergoing this weird change that will like see him moving through different stages and acting in different ways, not just like doing the most optimal fighting or whatever. And so perhaps that human body of his is a weak point in some way. Let's see here. So there's also, let's see. Alternate cape culture. Yeah, I had this quote here that I kind of already read, but whatever. A major population center. Capes were already taking flight to stop him. No, not capes. People in civilian clothes with powers. Many heavily tattooed. So, as we keep seeing different places in the world, we keep seeing the culture that invented capes in the United States and similar countries did not affect the whole world equally. And they really have their own style. This is just yet another type like the Tanda. Well, you know what I mean, not like the Tanda, another alternate that we're shown. Anyway, then they have prisoner release, and they talk through all the ideas of whether they'll open the birdcage or not, and they basically say that they'll give some amnesty. And then what the hell was I putting here? I wrote chair reactions. I sometimes I think I must just write whatever word is sort of being said aloud by the audiobook or something. I definitely don't know what chair reactions was meant to evoke in myself, but something. Whatever. I'm gonna move on because I don't think that I'm gonna remember. So, yes, I think it's time to move to the audience participation. Which character do you think has the most practical reaction on the spectrum of people dealing with the losses of both those that they know and the mass civilian deaths? The more I thought about this question, trying to come up with my own answer, I realized that we don't see the reaction of that many people, not in a way where we could put them in like an ordered list or anything, but I think by way of being a background character, Chevalier has one of the most level-headed, constructive responses afterward. And I want to clarify from the previous week that I think Taylor really holds up very well overall. Although she has to avoid thinking about specific stuff, she does whatever it takes to keep herself on track and not totally freak out. So, I wanted to have the next question, and I didn't get any audience answers. You know how it goes. If you're listening this far, you know how I don't always get audience reactions. For 27.3, another question that I have is, what comedic and insensitive thing was Imp about to say? And the quote begins, I'm, and then it has an M dash before Imp is cut off. She could really be saying anything. It's so open-ended. Yeah, I'm gonna replay the speed draw over top of the audio here as I exit. So, if you're listening to this, thank you for listening to the stream, etc. Thank you for being here, and thank you, Vic, for having been in the chat there. The music you can hear now and was played up top is Extinction by ScarlettXOX. You can find her at twitch.tv/Scarlett_Rogue. Our Discord server and the other links can be found in not only the stream description, but the channel description. And you can also find there the link for the author of the work being discussed, who can be supported on Patreon at patreon.com/Wildbow. The full text of the work is available for free online at parahumans.wordpress.com. And you can also access the fan-made audiobook that Rain had made, the first one, at audioworm.rain-online.org. Okay. Thank you all, and I will join you again for 27.3.